Awesome. All right, welcome to this live discussion about how to start your bodybuilding journey here in 2025. So as we know as coaches, me and Holly here are coaches. We know that a lot of people tend to have the question of how to start, what they should do, and kind of like what they can expect in that process, right? So we're going to kind of go over a lot of the basics when it comes to competing. And of course, we'll open it up to questions and stuff too. So if you have any questions, you can always put those in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you see fit. But we're going to kind of get into it. So as I mentioned, I'm a coach. I do the training and nutrition, posing. I'm also a suit seamstress. And then we have Holly here, who is a health and wellness coach and also a makeup artist. So we have a lot of different things that are covered within that. But the first thing that we kind of want to cover is mindset. So I'm going to actually let Holly talk about this because this is more of her specialty when it comes to all of that.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Holly Loss, and I am a national board certified health and wellness coach. Mindset is probably one of the biggest hurdles an athlete or anyone looking to change their lifestyle is going to encounter. Some people say, I'm worried about the diet, or I'm worried about getting up on stage in front of people, or I'm worried about the training. And I can tell you with each of those areas, it is this and this that'll fight you every step of the way. And that's before we get to external factors. The first thing I would suggest is just really be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself before you start the process, but really check in with yourself and be honest with yourself throughout the process. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be things that come natural and easy to you. And those are the things we love the most. And then there's the things that we're just not so excited about, or we're not sure about, or we just absolutely hate. And we just want to not, right? We want to not. However, I find that not just with athletes, but people in general, the things that you tend to dislike the most are usually the things you're going to need to learn to lean into the most in order to be the best that you can be in your journey. Notice I didn't say successful, because successful is a subjective term, and success will look different for everybody when they're framing into this area. Success isn't just taking home a first place win. Success isn't just conquering our fear of being on the stage. Success is if you feel good about you throughout the process, then you have been successful. It's not your weight. It's not being in a sparkly suit, even though that is fun. But success is you checking in with you and liking the person that you're looking at in the mirror. That is success, whether you ever make it to the stage or not. When I say take an inventory of where you are, there's a lot of time and money and sacrifices that are made when you want to fray into competing. And you will have a circle of people who might rally around you, and you might have a circle of people that are like, you're crazy and I just don't get this and I don't know why you want to do this. And that's okay. Both are absolutely okay, because this is your journey, not somebody else's. They don't necessarily need to understand your journey, and they may not. However, it is nice to have a mutual agree to disagree approach. When you are thinking in mindset, you're going to have to learn to embrace being uncomfortable, because there are parts about this journey that will feel uncomfortable. You might have never tracked food before, and that might feel uncomfortable. You might view the scale or measurements a certain way, and everybody feels very differently about them, right? And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. I want you to try to learn to zoom out for that and realize that the scale does not define success. It does not define your self-worth. It does not define who you are as an individual or who you are to other people. It is a data point. And the sooner that you can embrace the fact that that scale and those measurements that you might be asked to take are data points, you put yourself in a different headspace to grow. And that is so very important because I can tell you that not once in the history of competing has anyone asked a competitor to get on a scale before they take the stage. We often see in the first time bikini competitors group, people will be like, I'm me example, I'm 5 foot tall. I weigh 170 pounds. How much should I weigh when you take the stage? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is a subjective sport, meaning it's not like football where you have to score a certain number of points. It's not like soccer where you have to get a certain number of goals. It's not like wrestling where you have to get technical points. That's not how this works. The judging criteria is subjective, right? So you have your basic bikini competitor criteria. And I think Sarah has some really great visual references for those on the First Time Bikini Competitors Facebook group. For those of you that are on there, and if not, by all means, seek it out. Kind of talking about the proportions, right? The proportions of the body. But notice nowhere on those charts is there a weight or specific measurements, because a short person is going to be built differently than a tall person. Some of us are more dense, like I'm built for strength, not speed. Some of us are tall and lanky and we've got extra arms and legs. It is a subjective sport. So what happens is when the judges look at you, right, they're looking at your proportions. Now, how many of you read, whether you enjoy it or not? How many of us read? We read books, we read reports, right? Reading is subjective. What I think is a good report may not be what you think is a good report. What I think is a good book may not be what you think is a good book. But that doesn't mean it's a good or a bad book. It just means it's what we were looking for. That's how judging criteria goes. It is subjective. It's what my eyes see and what I feel as a judge based on this loose based criteria, right? There's not a lot of detail other than you should kind of look like this. It is what I feel represents the best package of the group of people who showed up that day. And that is a very vital point. It is the group of people that showed up that day. So your goal through your journey is to build the best version of you possible. And that's going to look different for everybody. And again, if you hold on to that mindset, if I'm going to go and build muscle and I'm going to adhere to my plan to bring the best version of me to the stage, that is success. When you get up there, remember that all 20 other people or 10 other people did the exact same thing, hopefully, that you did. They brought the best version of them. Then you have judges that are going to look at everybody who brought the best version of them and decide who represents that package in their mind the most. And that's why it's hard, especially for people who come through different, like I'll use examples runners. A lot of times runners will come into the sport and they're like, they're used to having the fastest time. Fastest time wins. And they just cannot wrap their head around the subjective part. Okay. So don't panic when you see people on the internet talking about weights and measurements and what size clothes they wear. And do you have to have fake boobs? And does it matter if my nail polish is magenta versus a friend? No,
Oh gosh.
no, no. Those judges don't care what color your nails are painted. They don't care if you have tattoos or wear glasses or don't wear glasses. They don't care if you have short hair or long hair. Do you know what they're looking at? From your shoulders to basically your kneecaps. That's what they care about. Should you wear a suit that complements your coloring? Absolutely, because we're highlighting our best package possible. If you want to wear push-up sticky pads or don't, that's okay too. Because they're not judging on the size of our boobies. They're not judging on your lipstick color. They are judging from your shoulder blades to roughly your kneecaps. Maybe a little bit of calf. Stop at the ankle.
Right. And I think that's important to note is that one, like I'm going to kind of go back a little bit, but your success is defined by you. Everyone has a different reason for competing, right? So, you know, someone who wants to compete for the first time, maybe it's just for the experience. Maybe it's a bucket list item. Other people, they want to make a career out of it. And that's fine too. So however you define your why for competing, that is something you should probably revisit, you know, time and time again, especially when things get hard, right? Because there will be, you know, mental barriers that you're going to have to overcome. There are going to be things that you don't like, things that you do like. And, you know, however you see success, you should define that for yourself, right? So I think that that was great points to touch on, Holly. And ultimately, it comes back to the basics, which we're going to kind of get into next, is building a strong foundation, right?
Yes.
We always want to focus on the basics at the core, right? So if you are someone who's just kind of trying to get into, you know, competing, maybe you haven't mastered the basics yet, that's fine. This is where I would start, right? So building a strong foundation, obviously you're going to be strength training quite a bit. You don't have to focus so much on cardio, but maybe you do need cardio in order to see the type of results that you're getting. Your plan is going to depend on where you're starting at. And everyone's different. So if I give the same plan to Holly that I do Pamela, for instance, they're going to have completely different results because they have different activity levels, they're different ages, they're, you know, their lifestyles are different, you know, and so, and how their body responds is different. So try to not think about so much the numbers. This is going to be a reoccurring theme, but don't think so much about the numbers, you know, the scale, your measurements, things like that. It is at the end of the day how you look. But building a strong foundation is going to carry you through when things get hard, you know, focusing on the basics. I always tell clients, don't overwhelm yourself with, you know, should I do this? Should I do this? Am I not doing enough? You know, all of this stuff. Don't overwhelm yourself in the process. Stick to the very basics at your core. So when it comes to strength training, you probably should be, you know, working out at least 4 to 5 times a week, roughly, of strength training, depending on where you're at with things. And then cardio is going to be sprinkled in depending on what your goal is at that time, whether you're building or you're cutting. You might need more, you might need less. And then, of course, progressing. You should be challenging yourself enough with those workouts that is to your fitness level, right? So everyone's going to look a little bit different on that, but you should be challenging yourself. The weights shouldn't just feel super easy and just flying through all the reps. You should be feeling the muscles that you are working. If you need to, slow down the exercises. So I promise you will not get bulky. Some women are afraid of that. I don't know if you're one of those, but you will not get bulky. It takes an incredibly hard amount of time to build like that and look bulky per se with muscle. So with that being said, I'll always focus on form and your techniques to work out the muscles that you are. You're going to get way better results than just flying through the exercises, and progressing off of that for your fitness level. I know I've been with Holly for a while, and you know, her plan's always changing, right? And so will your plan, depending on where you're at, what your lifestyle currently entails, and you know, how you are progressing, how you are, you know, making changes. So just know that your plan will change as you change, right? It's not going to be the same, you know, 100% of the time. You're not going to use the same workouts at the beginning that you are at the end when you're getting closer to the stage.
And I wanna pop in here, Sarah, because
Yeah.
the pillars of your journey will be sleep, training, nutrition, and stress management.
That one.
Yes. Because when we don't get enough sleep, these other 3 things go to shit.
True.
Okay. All right. When we have a lot of stress, let me pull this here because it's like this and this, sleep and stress, right? These 2 kind of fall in here. When we have a lot of stress, these 3 things go to shit.
Yep.
And that's where I say this and this will fight you harder than any dietary change, weight training program, or cardio session that you experience the entire time. So, I'm going to hop ahead, and because I know Sarah's going to mention this at some point, people say, you know, do I need a coach? Yes and no. If you're someone who's a self-starter, you like to immerse yourself and you like to research it and you feel comfortable foraying to that, if you like it, we love it. However, if this is something you've never done before, it's completely out of your comfort zone, at some point you may want to seek guidance of a coach. Maybe you want to start on your own and kind of dial in your nutrition and get a baseline for training, and that's beautiful. But at some point, especially when we talk about like prepping, which is about 16 to 20 weeks out from your competition date, you may want somebody to help you dial in to bring your best package possible. Can you take the stage without a coach? People do it all the time. And if that works for you, that's a beautiful thing. And congratulations, because that's a skill in itself. Like, we have friends, Sarah coached herself through her first competition. She didn't have a coach. If you go back on first time bikini competitors page or go to Top Not Strong, it'll talk about things she wishes she knew when she was prepping herself that first time. But it can be beneficial, and I'll tell you why. If not a coach, then maybe you seek help of a licensed professional or a very trusted friend, somebody that can be a sounding board when you feel frustrated and you're like, nothing's changing. Because sometimes some weeks the changes are very small, but they're still changing. You just don't see them because, much like plucking our eyebrows in the 90s, we get like way up in here and we're just going to town and we forget to come back. And when we do come back, we're like, oh, shit, because we have like 6 hairs left. There's that stress creeping in again. We forget to zoom out. So sometimes it's nice to have a coach or a licensed professional or someone very trusted where you can be like, I feel like what I like to call the messy middle. I feel like I'm not where I was, which is a good thing, but I'm nowhere near where I need to be. And that can be hard, right? That can mess with our heads, where you may be exactly on track where you need to be. But again, you're all up in here instead of taking a look out here. So stress management and sleep, because when you're stressed out and lacking sleep, we make dumb decisions. We make impulsive decisions. They usually come in the form of the first thing when we walk through the door that we can get our hands on to shove in our mouth. And it may not be exactly on plan. And that will happen from time to time. I need you to acknowledge that. Sometimes you just need a damn donut or a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you love. Okay. Sometimes you just need one. And again, it's having that mindset of realizing you didn't mess up. You didn't derail all your progress. You didn't make a mistake. You had a human moment. Now, what will define that human moment is what you choose to do afterwards, which is get back up on the horse the next day and get into your routine and problem solved. Don't focus so hard on the one speed bump and make it into a giant mud hill. And again, that comes from here and here. It happened, or, vacation. I'm sure over the course of a year, you're going to want to take a vacation. Can you take a vacation? Absolutely. Do you have a plan of what you're going to do before your vacation and when you get back from vacation? That's success. Do you have a plan to try to navigate your programming to the best of your ability while on vacation? Yes, that's success. Are you going to have an honest talk with yourself throughout that process before and after, or with your coach? Yes, that's success. Be honest with yourself. If you know that you get around certain family members that are going to push like 6 plate course meal, and you know that that is not for you at the time, that might be uncomfortable, right? And that's valid, but it's how you choose to navigate that situation. Do you bring your own food? Nothing wrong with that. And if people have a problem with that, well, again, what other people feel about you is none of your business. And I said what I said. What is your business is how you feel about you. That's your business. But how other people feel about you is none of your business. That makes the process much easier. But it's navigating those uncomfortable situations. If you know that your sister-in-law bakes handmade donuts, and once you sit down to talk with her, 6 hours later, you have eaten a dozen. You may need to navigate and think about that ahead of time before you go to visit her. Or, you may say, can we meet somewhere different this time? It's okay for people to be like, why won't you have more of this? You're not eating enough. You look too thin, blah, 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 blah. And you can just say, you know what? I'm working towards a goal at this time, and this is part of my goal. Or why can't you do XYZ? It's just one night. I really appreciate the invite. However, it doesn't align with my goal at this time. See how it takes the conversation different? Because when you're like, well, I just can't. I just can't. And they don't want to hear that. Nobody likes to hear no. We don't like to hear no. Nobody likes the word no. Unless we're saying it, then we like it. But but you can say it just doesn't align with my goals at this time. I've set a goal for myself and it just doesn't align with my goals at this time. Now, does that mean that these are magic words and they're going to accept them? No, there's no such thing. However, it does make navigating these difficult conversations a little bit easier when we talk about this just doesn't align with where I want to go right now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you mentioned, like kind of zooming out, right? Kind of looking at the whole picture. Some people that are closest to you are not going to understand. So you might have to have some uncomfortable conversations, especially if you have a significant other that may not understand. Getting them kind of on the same page or acknowledging that this is your goal right now. Sometimes that is hard to navigate for certain people, but that doesn't make it any less of a goal for you, right? And with that being said, even myself, just for instance, like I'm, a little over a year postpartum for my first child. So looking out and zooming out, sometimes I don't feel like I'm making enough progress, right? I'm kind of going back a little bit, but sometimes I don't feel like I'm making enough progress. But when I look back a year ago, obviously I've made a lot of progress, right? So I think that again, don't focus so much on like zooming in and be like, oh my God, I'm going to nitpick every little thing. Like this isn't going according to plan. I'm not making any progress. If you look back, you will see that you've made progress, but the important part is to be consistent in that process, right? It's not what you do in one day, it's what you do consistently. And so I think that that is a big factor for a lot of people is when they do mess up, when they do, fumble and they have a donut, for instance, or something that is not according to plan, they tend to want to throw things out the window, right? Like, oh, I messed up. I can't do this. They start getting in their head a lot. You have to kind of zoom out and just be like, I messed up today. How can I prevent this in the future? Or what can I do to help myself in the future? Maybe it's just because you've been so depleted of carbs, or maybe you're just working yourself so much that you're just really stressed right now, right? And you need the extra time to rest. That is totally normal. Your body needs rest. So if you are experiencing these things, it's important to talk to a coach. If you have one, ask them like, hey, like, I've been really tired lately, or I've just been really craving X, Y, and Z. And I need some tips on how to manage that. Or can we adjust my plan to help with that? And depending on where you're at, you might be able to adjust that and they can help to make accommodations for that. So I think that obviously you have to really kind of like listen to your body in a way to know like exactly one, being honest with yourself and how you are feeling, but two, if your body is experiencing things that don't seem typically normal to you, is to talk to someone, either a professional or your coach, to kind of see what needs adjusted along the way, or if it's just a mindset thing, right? Something, a mental barrier that you have to kind of work yourself through, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I kind of want to talk about a little bit on deciding whether or not competing is for you, right? So if you're someone who is kind of on the, kind of trying to figure out if it is something that you can do or want to do, how do you evaluate that? And how do you figure out if that is something that you can pursue? One, we think obviously anyone can pursue bodybuilding, but it is the mental barriers that will whether or not determine your success in getting there. So I think that if you are struggling currently with like tracking your food or staying consistent, that is obviously the first place you would start, right? It is a mental game in that aspect. If you can't master the basics, it's going to be hard to go through a prep. You're going to have an incredibly difficult time trying to master the basics and also master posing and all of the other things that come with it, right? So mastering the basics with your training and nutrition, hands down, is going to be the first thing. If you can do that and you're having good success with that, then obviously, you can take that next step into bodybuilding and kind of dabble in that and kind of see, Am I going to like this? Am I not? Some people will not know if they actually truly love the process until they're in it. And I was one of those people. My first show, I did not know if I was going to do it again, but I loved the challenge. Like my definition of success at the time was just to step on stage. Like I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, right? And so I didn't know if I was going to compete again. I just wanted it for the experience, to challenge myself, to prove to myself that I could do it. And so when I did compete, then I was like, okay, that was hard. I enjoyed it, even though I didn't place very well. But I was like, I wanted to do it again. And I didn't know that until after the fact. So you may or may not want to do it again, but going through the process is kind of the only way to actually determine whether or not you are, loving it or you absolutely hate it. And it's okay either way. So if you get into it and you decide that it's not for you, that's okay. That is completely normal and fine. Not everyone is going to, compete that wants to get into it. So other than that, there are different divisions. So when it comes to competing, obviously I do have, in our first competitors group, kind of like an outline of what that would look like and what judges are looking for. When it comes to competing, those different divisions, I always say, one, it should, depending on how soon you want to compete, it will determine, one, what division, but also what your heart is set on, what shape you want to create when it comes to your physique, right? So if you're someone who is okay with waiting a certain amount of time to actually like do figure or another division, you can absolutely do that. But if you're someone who wants to compete like this next year and you might not quite have that figure physique yet, then you might have to do a different division for now. But that doesn't mean you can't grow into the division you really want. But it depends on you. Why do you want to compete? It's always going to go back to that, right? And how soon you want to do that. So other than that, Holly, do you have anything you want to add right now?
I do. So before you ever decide what division you go to, I want you to do some research. I'm going to give you a couple homework assignments. And your first homework assignment is, I want you, as soon as we get off this call today, if you haven't done so already, I want you to grab a piece of paper or whatever you feel comfortable. You can record a note to yourself, whatever. Your why. Why do you want to do this thing? And you might get off this call and be like, F this is not for me. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay, right? Because it takes all flavors of ice cream to make the world go round. We all like different things. So, but if there is a goal that is in your heart, and it may not be this after this call, I want you to write down your why, and I want you to keep it. I want you to keep it so that when you're having a crap day, or you're in the messy middle, or you're just seeing like, how did I get here? Why am I doing this to myself? And there will be moments of self-doubt. I want you to grab your why. And I want you to touch into that again, tap into that. And here's a secret. Your why might and can change. Because as people, we change, right? We're not the same people we were at 10 or 20 or 30 because we're meant to grow. So that might change. It might evolve. Keep your original and keep every revision thereafter, because you never know where you might come full circle back to your original. Keep that. I also want you to explore federations. That's your second goal. There are a lot of different competitive federations. You've got NPC, you've got OCB. Find a federation that feels right for you. Because that way, when you start training, you can go into their guidelines and outlines, and it'll break down the criteria of what that federation stands for, like their mission statement, their values, their visions, or goals, as well as their judging criteria and their uniform criteria of what you're required to wear for them for that day. Okay. Now, if nowhere in there does it say something about like hair, skin, nails, do not focus on things that don't matter. Because if they did matter, they'd have them written in the rules and the guidelines. Does that make sense? All right. So pick your federation. Then, like Sarah said, pick what division you feel like speaks to you. Sometimes it might be helpful to pick a federation and go see a show, which I encourage at some point in your journey. Go see a show, a real one, not through YouTube. Go to a live one and just sit like a fly on the wall and just take it in. Take it in. Because again, it will give you an idea of what to expect because we like to know what to expect. People be like, I love surprises. No, no, in this case, you will not. You will not love surprises. Let's not do it. Okay. So this way you kind of know what to expect and what you're training towards. If you have a low point and at that moment you felt inspired, go to another show and then reconnect with that why. Like Sarah said, depending on what figure, form, shape we're working for, things take time. And guess what? Time's going to pass anyways. So take the time and let's make a difference in right now. You cannot make time. You get 24 hours. There's no making more. You cannot make another 25 hour. You cannot make another 10 minutes. It is taking time. And only you can take time. And sometimes taking time comes with a lot of compromise. And that can be uncomfortable. Self-love is not selfish. Taking time for yourself is not selfish. We will feel guilty because there will always be a work project, a house project, a loved one, a pet, a family, something, a best friend, something. They will always be there. However, you need to learn to take time. Even if that means when someone calls and they say, hey, what are you doing Saturday morning? And you say, I have an appointment. Don't say I got to go to the gym or do that because they'll be like, oh, no, you can totally skip or whatever. I have an appointment. Why? What did you have in mind? It is none of their business that your appointment is with you and a treadmill. Have an appointment because people seem to accept that much easier. What are you doing after work? I have an appointment, but I can come see you at 7. I might be a little stinky and sweaty, but I'll see you at 7. So taking time, giving yourself time. And Sarah's going to dive into this more. However, what you need to understand is trying to do anything quickly with the body comes with a degree of challenge and a degree of risk, right? We can't force the body to very quickly pick up a lot of weight and muscle mass without a degree of risk and challenge. We can't force the body to drop a lot of weight while maintaining muscle mass because that is so important. People always harp on the weight thing. Without a degree of risk and challenge. Slow and steady wins the race when it comes to this process. By all means, pick a federation and a division and a show date. We always recommend waiting to register for that show in that division on that date because a lot can happen in life. If you think about the last 3 months, how much of it went smoothly into plan? I see faces. I see ticker tape. I see eyes. You're like, yeah, none of it. None of it. That's life. So having an idea for something, but also not being so married to that date so that you feel comfortable that if you need to move, because sometimes we do need to move dates. Sometimes the body can be stubborn and that is just to be expected. So when we're dialing in, they might be like, you know what, if we had another, your coach, or even you might say, you know, if I had another 2-3 weeks, I think I would be where I need to be. That's why you wait to register so that you're not taking a loss on money because, you know, that's a resource and you can come with the best version of you instead of walking up on stage saying, I wish I would have given myself more time. Sarah's going to talk to you about cardio. And a lot of times, people who have weight to lose, whether you have been building for a long time or you haven't, you're just foraying, you know, you might have weight to lose. And that's okay. And that happens a lot. At any point in time, a professional athlete tells you they never had to lose weight for a show, they're lying. Okay. You don't want to start out the gate with a lot of cardio. Cardio is a beast in itself. The reason thing about cardio, and you talk to your runner friends, right? Someone who started running not because they loved it, but because they wanted to lose weight, and then they fell in love with it, right? They fell in love with this process. Cardio is a beast because it will constantly demand more from you. So what started out is I started doing 20 minutes of cardio a day and I just started losing weight like this. But then 20 minutes like wasn't doing it anymore. So I went to 30. Then I went to 40. Now I do an hour of cardio a day. Now, unless you're an ultra marathon runner, and God love you, because I have a love-hate relationship with cardio and I envy you. Um, and I can say, Sarah has coached me. Sarah and I have been together for 4 years. And there are a lot of times I am cursing Sarah's name all the way from Maryland, cursing her out on a treadmill on a Saturday morning, telling her I'm going to punch her the day we ever see each other in Florida or Maryland. I'm going to punch her in her face for making me get on this cardio machine. I don't have to sleep. But reserve your cardio, because if you reserve your cardio, that thing that demands more and more from you for when you really need it, like towards the end, it makes it so much more manageable. So much more manageable. When I met Sarah, I asked her, and I'll tell you this is important. Finding a coach, should you choose to get one, is kind of like dating. But if any of you have a therapist, that's kind of like dating too. Either they get you or they don't. And if they don't, take your money elsewhere. And that's okay. And a good therapist will say, after we talk today, I might not be for you. And that's okay. And that's when you found a good one, right? Different personalities, just different ways of getting people, right? Either we're going to connect or we don't, like dating, like friendship. Find a coach that you connect with. Because you should be able to be so like honest with your coach. I mean, honest, like, I'm angry, I'm bloated, I hate tomatoes. Stop putting them in my eating plan. You need to be honest. And I remember telling Sarah, like, again, I'm built for strength, not speed. I know cardio is necessary, but it's not my favorite. And I never want to be in a position where I'm at peak week and I'm being told I have to do 2 hours of cardio a day. Oh, Pam, I saw your face. It happens more often than you think. No,
We'll never
right.
do two.
No. But again, but you see how like the panel, what I'm seeing is someone who's in touch with, no, right? But I think so many people who are people pleasers, who don't know how to say no, or feel like, well, you're my coach, so you know better, so I have to listen, right? First of all, right. First of all, whoever you're paying works for you. Step one, right? Step one. So whoever you're paying should be receptive to hearing you out. And be willing to work with you. There have been times in my training career where I tell Sarah, you know what, my life has imploded and gone to shit. And I don't think I can handle training 5 days a week. And Sarah has said to me, well, Holly, what does feel approachable? That is the right answer. What feels approachable for you? How can I best support you? What do we need to change? She didn't tell me to pull away from my goal. She didn't tell me to quit. She didn't tell me, well, trust the process. I want to punch somebody every time I hear that. Trust the process. Well, if you don't know what the hell the process is, what the hell are you trusting? I don't know what the process looks like. I just started out. You keep telling me to trust this thing I have never seen before. Right? Right. Now you can tell me trust the process and this is why, and explain it to me in a way that I understand, then yes. But you want to be honest with yourself about how much time you have and what life looks like. You want to be honest about what's working and what's not. You want to be honest if, like Sarah said, you're constantly like not adhering to plan. You're not a failure, but you need to be honest with yourself and your coach so that they can help you. I just can't stay out of the damn peanut butter jar. It has been an every night thing for like the last week. I just cannot keep my hand out of it. I'm like a bear in the middle of a picnic park. I just can't. That's something your coach needs to hear. And they're going to say, okay, let's try this. Let's do this. What else is going on? But if you're not being forthcoming with that information and you're not being honest with yourself about the time that you need to be prepared, building muscle takes time. And a lot of people don't seem to understand. They're like, well, I'm overweight. I need to lose weight. No. You need to build. And this is where it's uncomfortable, because when we lose weight quickly, we lose it in muscle mass. We're not actually losing weight. We're just losing our muscle mass first. Then the weight comes off. However, you're not in stage shape then, right? We're kind of flat. We're kind of flat. Can't take, I mean, you can. I can't say you can't take the stage. It's your money. You absolutely can take the stage whenever the hell you want. However, you might look different than the people to the left and right and front and back of you. You have to come up before you can go down. You have to come up in your nutrition, and sometimes that looks like up in nutrients, like your macros, your protein, your carbs, your fats. You might have to come up, or you might have to come up calorie count too, right? We have to come up in order to be able to take things away while still maintaining the most amount of muscle possible. But if you don't have a good foundation of muscle first, you're going to lose it coming down. So we got to build, 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 hit that sweet spot, and then say, okay, it's time to slowly take away. Because when we talk about things that are sustainable, the slower we make changes, the easier those changes are to maintain and navigate in our routine. I always talk about like New Year's resolution. New Year's resolution comes around and everybody's like, new year, new me. And I'm going to toss out everything in my life, including the kitchen sink and the kids. I'm going to change everything. And like for the first 3 days, you're like, this is great. And on day 4, you're like, this sucks. F that alarm clock. If someone shoves a stick of celery in my face, I'm going to punch them. And I hate water. Because you made too many hard changes at once that your brain just wasn't ready to wrap around, and your life might not be been in a place to do that. So when we talk about those foundations, if you're not tracking food yet, or you're not tracking hydration, or you're not tracking sleep, I don't care what it is, pick a thing that feels manageable and track it. And after like 2-3 weeks, if you feel comfortable tracking that, pick the next thing to track. If you're tracking your food, especially if you're going to hire a coach, because the first thing they're going to say is, where are you? What are you consuming? What's your baseline? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. And we see that all the time. Like, we have consultations, right? And they're like, I have no idea what I've been eating or like how much, right? They have no baseline to go off of. So that's why I always recommend that you have kind of a baseline. You're starting with the basics, right? That's your baseline. At least that way you have something to work off of. So with that, strong foundation will come that, and then you can make adjustments as need to. But if you're not tracking anything, it's really hard to make changes, right? Because you don't have a log to kind of look back on and be like, oh, well, this is working or this is not working, and make changes from there, right? So yes, it can be tedious, but it is your diary in a sense of your progress. It is what's going to determine where you need to make changes throughout that process. So while it may seem tedious, it gets easier the more that you do it. And Holly can attest to that too. She's done almost 600 workouts with me now. And she's logged every single one. And so it gets easier the more that you do it. You find what works, what doesn't, and it is a learning process within that. So I want to kind of recap what we've talked about so far. Is obviously, if you're wanting to start your journey in 2025 for bodybuilding, go to a show, kind of figure out what you love and don't like about that federation, go to a couple, get inspired, see how it plays out, what you can expect the day of, make sure it's kind of something that you can see yourself doing and would want to do. It is going to be a process. 2, after you decide that, you can talk to a coach if you'd like, get an idea of what division would be best for you right now, or what a timeline would look like for you based on what your current lifestyle is and what changes you would need to make, right? And then obviously along with that is sticking to the basics: training, nutrition, and sleep, and stress management. Those are the 4 main things that you're going to have to focus on. Posing will come later. We're not going to really talk too much about posing today because that's going to widely depend on your division, right? So, and then of course, the last thing is just being consistent. It's not what you do in one day. It is what you do consistently. So If you have a mess up, don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back on track. The sooner you do, the better it'll be. And then when it comes to obviously your training and your nutrition, it's going to depend where you're at, but focus on strength training first. Add in cardio as needed. It is a tool to help you depending on where you're at, and then tracking your macros and calories to kind of have that baseline, like I was saying, for your diary in a sense of where to make changes. But other than that, you're committing to growth, you're committing to your goals, and you're committing to yourself, whatever you define your success as, right? And so I'm going to open up this time for you guys to ask any questions. If you have any, me and Holly can answer those for you. You can unmute yourself or put them in the chat, either one.
And all questions are fair game. So don't feel like you're asking a silly question or stupid question or an outrageous question. There's really probably nothing you could say that make either of us bat an eyelash. Like,
we've heard it all.
We've seen and done and heard some things.
You're good. Anyone?
No? I will touch upon. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was trying to figure out how to turn the microphone back on. It's not really a specific question per se. It's sort of just me coming from like my background and experience kind of, and I've been kind of on the, sort of like pre-contemplation phase of bodybuilding for a while. About a year and a half ago, I was a little bit more close to a journey with it. But the reason why I ended up kind of getting a little bit like stuck is for me, I'm a really hard gainer. So for me, like whenever I'm kind of looking at a show, it seems very daunting because it's like, it might be 3 years of just straight bulking. I don't know, before I even can get to a show because it's so hard for me to keep any weight on. So like, that's just like a question of like, has that been like an experience that maybe has happened in the bodybuilding world, if that makes sense, to kind of come for? Because even in regular standard training, it's even hard to find just regular trainers that, I can kind of connect with because they're always like, well, you need to do more, especially the cardio. I don't really do any cardio because I want to keep my weight, like, if that makes
right.
just every day, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say you're not the only one, right? It's not as common, I will say, because a lot of people tend to hold on to weight, but you have a high metabolism, it sounds like. So I have actually worked with a couple of people who have tried to gain, and you're at a kind of an advantage, I would say, because you have that high metabolism to work with, right? And so you don't need a ton of cardio, which is great. You're one of the people who don't when it comes to that. So I would say you might not need quite 3 years, depending on the division that you're looking to enter, right? But of course, it depends on which division. I would say at least a year of, building, and you can do this in a slow process. Obviously, it depends on where your baseline is at, but you'll have to eat in a surplus in order to build, right? And then evaluate as you every 3 months or so. Be like, okay, I'm on the right track, or I need to add a little bit more, or, your energy levels too will play into that. So depending on how your body is and physique is looking as you're making that change, you definitely can. But I would say you might not need 3 years, but I would say at least a year of like building, see where you're at, and then reevaluate. It's always going to come back to how you look. So you'll have to reevaluate over time. Is there a specific division that you're looking to enter?
So part of this has just been sort of me kind of, being the fly on the wall and checking things out. I have a feeling with how hard I know it is for me to gain weight, like just throughout my life. I have a feeling I'm probably gonna have to just stick with like bikini, if that makes sense, because like, even for that, I had been in a bulk for about a year and a half. And even in that year and a half, as far I know, not worrying about weight per se, but even in that like surplus of calories to like struggle to get to that, I barely even moved the needle on the scale, if that makes sense. And like, I did make changes, you could definitely tell like especially like in my back and everything, you could definitely see definition and things like that. But it's one of those things that I never know, like, well, how much is enough? Because kind of coming from a place where I feel like I always have to like keep upping. It's like, well, when is the where's the cutoff for it? So I've always just kind of thought that bikini probably made the most sense to even just get to like that like
Right.
platform.
Yeah, and it's something else to consider is that even if you start at bikini, right, you can always continue to grow after a show. So you could always grow into, you know, building upon that foundation, right? And there are, you know, true novice categories for each division. So those are people who have never competed before. So you would also be competing against other people who have never competed before. So that's also another thing to consider is the true novice within your division. So say bikini. So they're going to have bikini true novice and bikini novice. And those are going to be people who have never competed and never won at a show before, like never placed, you know, in the top 3 or 5. So that's another thing to consider is that you will, you know, be up against other people who are within that unless you're in the open category, right? But starting out, you will build upon that foundation. And I know it's been a year and a half and it's hard for you to gain, but I would recommend, are you working with a coach right now?
Not currently. So it was sort of I guess the way I can describe it, it was sort of a more like defined goal I had, obviously starting a couple of years ago. So then I had been in like a 1.5-year bulk. And at that time I had just sort of been working with a trainer on sort of what Holly had said about the basics. You know, we weren't even kind of looking at the bodybuilding world, for instance, but obviously it, you know, was said in my intention, this is something I would like to, you know, eventually do. And we were kind of working on the basics. And then about a year and a half ago, I unfortunately just sort of had to put the brakes on it due to a job change just in my life. Because unfortunately, with how life goes and schedule changes and whatever, my new job that I had done for about a year and a half just now, I couldn't eat the way that I needed to. There wasn't enough hours in the day to eat. Like, and I, you know, of course I tried extra shakes and, you know, mass gainer and, you know, all the things and everything, but it was just, it was like, I can't work and, you know, keep all like
All the
this up,
things.
if that makes sense. So that's where like kind of starting now, I feel like I'm kind of like starting over again, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm like a new bodybuilder again, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Jennifer, I want to highlight that you're not new. You're seasoned. You're seasoned and you've been and done and seen some things, right? Again, weight, whether you want to go up or down, is a data tool. And I want you to know that there are some even professional competitors whose stage weight and competitive, like off-season weight, may only swing 10 pounds.
okay.
Because in reality, if you want to stay in the sport a long time, again, we don't want to put the body through a lot of right? It's hard on the organs, the mind, the heart, it's hard, right? So anybody who is a long-term competitor may only tell you there's only like a 10 to 20 pound sway
Okay.
on their off-season body versus their competitive body.
Yeah.
Whether you want to go up or down, it is possible to completely change your look aesthetically without moving the needle on the machine.
Absolutely.
Yes. And you said, even though you really weren't seeing gains on the scale, you could see the things in your back, right? So what I encourage you to do is get off that data point.
Okay.
Get away from the
scale.
get
Hide
away
the
from it.
scale.
Hide the scale. And take pictures, maybe once a week or once a month, of your progress to see your gains.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because
I also want you, yeah. Go
you
ahead.
might not see a ton change with the scale, and that's fine. But even myself, like, I don't look how much I weigh now. You know what I mean? Like, most people would be like, so I weigh 195, and people are like, what? What? But I don't look that because of the muscle that I have built, right? So weight is kind of irrelevant in that, but I would take inch measurements and see where your inches are changing and pictures. That would be the main things that I would focus on, because at least then you can see where you are making those changes physically rather than just an overall number that's on the scale, right?
And I feel like that'll pull some of that frustration
Yeah.
and discouragement away from you, right? Because like you can love something to the point where like you don't love it anymore.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
So like I love that you are, working towards something that is really important to you. And I love that even through trial and tribulation and hurdles, you're getting back up on the horse, right? And that speaks to resiliency. But get off the data point. And I want you to call it a data point.
Okay.
Get off the data point. Ignore the scale. What do you see? Again, a judge is not going to ask you how much you weigh when you get on stage. They're not going to ask you to step on the scale. And what you weigh is nobody else's business, except for you and your physician. That's between the two of you. And a coach. And again, if you talk to a coach and a coach is hearing you the way we're hearing you, they would probably advise you the same. Get off the data point. Focus on building the best version of you that you can bring to the stage. Food is fuel. So think of like gas for a car, right? For some reason, your vehicle is just really efficient at using that fuel, right? So
Yes.
we may need to look at the quality and quantity of that fuel to find out what is going to sustain you longer. So it might be that you use it so efficiently that you get hungry faster, which a lot of times when we're training and we are using things efficiently, you'll find that your appetite ramps up, right? Which
Yes.
is a good thing because our body is using that fuel. We should feel hungry from time to time, not starving, hungry, get in tune with our hunger cues. So it may be that you find that certain types of protein will help sustain you longer, or using a certain combination of carbohydrates might sustain you longer and help you build more efficiently. Well, and it may not move the data point, but it's helping you plump up those muscles in a way that you can visually see the change. So I would look at just continuing to train the way you've been training as long as you feel like you're seeing progress. And again, there's pictures and there's measurements. And maybe, maybe when you're logging your food, check in with yourself. Do I feel like I could lift heavier when I ate XYZ?
Mhm.
That might be something to add more into my rotation. Did I feel like I couldn't lift as heavy when I ate XYZ? Maybe that's not the most efficient fuel for me during that time. And start picking apart the pieces of the pie that way, that recipe, because it really is a recipe, right? And once we find the recipe, which is that first foray into competing, is building your recipe, then should you choose to do it again, you've got a blueprint, a recipe worth laminating for generations to come that you can tweak from time to time as needed.
No, for sure. And I really appreciate your feedback as well. Like I said, from my side too, I've been kind of like, I always feel like sort of the odd fish out, you know what I'm like?
It's more common than you realize. It's
Okay.
just not as well talked about, and I'll tell you why. Because people will feel guilty for going on a public forum where other people are saying they have the opposite problem. They feel guilty because I like to call the keyboard warriors coming out,
Okay.
you know, and everyone has an opinion, right? But again, they're just opinions, and you feel like you're being attacked because someone's like, no, you don't understand what it feels like to me, blah, 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 blah. The reality is whether you need to go up or go down, you're both hit with the same set of challenges.
Mm.
The same set of frustrations. But again, we only see things from our perspective and our experiences, but it is equally frustrating, is equally a valid a problem as somebody feeling frustrated about not being able to come down. It's just as valid as somebody being frustrated about not going to come up. It's just that, again, genetically, your body is using things in a different way than mine or Sarah's or Shauna or Pamela, but that doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make you the odd duck out. It's just that it's not discussed as publicly, and it should be.
Yeah, and like I said, there's been plenty of people that I've talked to that have had that same, set of challenges where they are struggling to gain, and they've been at it for a while, and they just like my husband, for instance, his metabolism's so high. I'm like, let me give you mine because I wish I had that problem. But like he loses so easily, and it's so hard for him to gain, and he's done the shakes and stuff too. And the only time he's really gained was when I was pregnant. So, I don't know what that says. But anyways, you're not the only one. So just take that with, grain of salt and, keep working for what you're doing. It sounds like you're on the right track. It's just a matter of time. At the end of the day, it's just the time that you put in. And eventually you will see that progress that you're looking for when you look back on it.
For sure. Well, again, thank you so much as well for the time. I also wanted to mention, I also live in Maryland, Holly.
Oh, of course.
I live up in Westminster, up in Carroll County.
Okay, well, I'm in Cecil County, so we're like,
okay, yeah,
I'm right on the I'm like 10 minutes from University of Delaware and like 5 minutes from PA. I'm like the tippy.
I was gonna say you're closer to the beach.
I am. Yes, I am.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. Well, it was great having you guys on the call today. I hope it was valuable. I know that we didn't get into a ton of nitty-gritty stuff today, but of course, you can always schedule a consultation with any of us. We do also have a coach, Stephanie, who wasn't able to make it today, but any of us could talk to you further about, timelines or questions or things like that you're needing, and helping you to feel more successful and prepared for the stage whenever that time comes. But it was great having you guys here today. We'll keep the recording. It'll probably be on YouTube later. But of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll talk to you here soon.
And also on the First Time Bikini Competitor Group page, if you're on there, you can tag any of us. So like if you're like, you know what, I thought about this after our call today and this came to mind, and you want to tag one of us, we'll see it, we'll answer you. Or if you just want to post and not tag us and you just want to see what other people say, that's fine too. But just know that you're not alone in this process, and that your experiences are valid, and they may look different from person to person, but it doesn't make it wrong. And when you have a frustration or a hurdle, reach out to trusted sources. Again, if you get on an internet forum, you're going to get a lot of opinions, and you pick them apart with what makes sense and what doesn't. And I always say on the internet, try not to take things personally. People are only seeing things from their lens, and it looks like this. But lean into yourself, lean into your instincts. If something feels right or feels icky. If you find a coach, again, it's like dating, and if they're not for you, that's okay. That's okay. And you always remember that throughout the process, if you're paying someone, they do work for you. Ultimately, they're there to guide you. I think sometimes we get it backwards, and suddenly, again, if we're really quick to always say yes, or we're leaning into like, I'm paying you because you are the professional, ask yourself, if I heard a friend tell me that their coach said to do X, Y, Z, would I still feel the same about this conversation? And if you see a red flag, then girl, it's a red flag. But yeah, it was great seeing everybody. Pamela, you got something?
Yeah. What is the name of that page, or is it something that's, know me, I'm the big data queen. You want to talk data?
All right.
I do. And I have a loose leaf binder that has grown from 1 inch, 2 inch, and now is a 6 inch of everything, and it's divided. Like I'm ultimately organized. I'm probably
you're making your implementation process manual is what you got.
Yeah, I have a book on. I mean, I got probably a bestseller. And what you said about the pictures, trust me, Jennifer, is so darn true. Because where I was at. I mean, I had lost a lot of weight and I couldn't gain because I wasn't that I couldn't gain, mind you. And I always said I couldn't. I had to have a coming to Jesus meeting, and it wasn't that I couldn't. I had a fear of gaining because of where I was. Yeah. And then I lost. Then I got into therapy and realized it was a fear of gaining to going back to being heavy. And now over the past, I would say, since we had chatted about, suit and everything, I've gained 6 pounds I would say altogether 6 pounds. 3, which is muscle. 2 is probably water, and they say fat. But I had a DEX done, so I have the data. It's all data. And like when they say get away from that scale, get the hell. It's like the devil looking at you, and you're like, and you go right into it. And it's anyone who has had that problem. I get on the scale once a month, and I see girls in the gym jumping on that scale, and I'm like looking at them going, it didn't change from yesterday. And if it did, it's probably water. How much water did you drink today? Come on, let's just be serious. I get on it. I look at it once a month. I write it down and I put it away. It has nothing to do with what my journey is.
That's right.
It's all about right now. I have got to build, and I'm finally starting to build. And it's like, you have to. But what is the name of the group?
It's on Facebook. It's called the First Time Bikini and Bodybuilding Competitors.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, any of those groups, or, on socials, Top Notch Strong, or Holly has hers, muscle. What is it called again?
On Instagram,
Instagram.
muscle mascara persevere.
Yes.
And
lack of the mascara.
Yeah, so I'm like, lack of my mascara too. I'm like, Sarah's like, Holly's a makeup artist. I'm like, don't look at my face. I only got skincare on today. But I've worked as a makeup artist for 20 plus years.
Shoot, I need help.
And well, you can always go to Top Notch Strong and you can book a consult for that. If you want to look at my makeup artistry page, you can just look at holly.loss on Instagram. Now, I will be the first to admit, I do not update those pages on the regular, and it is because I have a day job. I work in chronic disease prevention, so I don't update
emergency medicine.
I work more on the public health side than the healthcare side. However, mine is more chronic disease prevention, health education, which is why I speak to you about the things I speak to you about, because they apply to all aspects of health. But it's something I'm very passionate about. So again, by all means, if you have a question, reach out. If you want to chit chat for, a consultation, we have free consultations. You're always welcome to book one and talk to either of us, or meet Coach Steph if you want to see her, because she's funny. We love her. But find people you connect with. Find people you connect with, find people that you can use as a sounding board, reach out to a supportive community. If you're on a page that doesn't feel supportive, find another page that is. Because again, flavors, all different flavors of ice cream. Go around.
Yep. But other than that, that was it today. Feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll talk to you here soon. We look forward to seeing what you guys do in 2025.
Yeah, and as you make progress, tag us. Let us know. We'll cheer you on.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.